It's a scene that if you're a chaplain, you've seen too many times to count. And it's a family sitting vigil at their loved one's bedside, whether that's in a hospital or in the comfort of their own home, waiting for the inevitable to happen. It is one of the biggest tensions that I think families face. And I'm here to put words to what so many people feel, but often feel guilt or embarrassment around. And I've been asked this question so many times. And that question is, when will my loved one die? It's so hard to answer because let's start with the obvious. No one knows, not the physician, not the nurse, and definitely not me as a chaplain. And sometimes I don't even know if the person knows when they're exactly going to die. But I can tell you this, that question comes loaded with emotion. If you have not sat by someone's bedside day in and day out, waiting, the pause feels like forever. And then you have a nurse come in and they give you the vitals and it looks like the person is on a decline and you're holding your breath, waiting. You're afraid, you're sad, you're angry. You've got all these emotions wrapped up inside of you and you're waiting. And then 2 days later, your loved one is still here. It's the start and the stop of it all, right? It's I think we're moving forward, but now we're moving backwards. That tension is tiring. And then when you add the guilt of, I should be cherishing every moment with this loved one, or the family member who says, I promised my mother that I would not leave her bedside until she passed, even though now it's been 2 weeks. And I'm not kidding. There was a woman who was washing her clothes in the hospital bathroom once to fulfill that promise. And so people take that seriously. And it could cause tons and tons of anxiety. Can you imagine not taking a bath, a proper bath for 2 weeks? Because you made a promise to your mother that you wouldn't leave her bedside? And what makes that so wild is that I've seen so many times, and chaplains back me up on this, I've seen so many times where a patient won't die until the loved one leaves. So they're holding out until that loved one leaves. Death is a strange thing, but a very natural one. And so when a family gets to the point where they're like, I'm just tired. I've put my life on hold. I flew here from Florida or Texas or from the UK even. And I got to get back to work. I've got to get back to my dog because he's being boarded at a place that's charging me $500 a week. Whatever the situation may be, is they're basically saying, I need to get back to my life. That feels selfish for some people. Now, for me as a chaplain, it's real. It's you being honest with what you feel. And one of the things that I always try to remind people who are wrestling with that is that wanting your loved one's suffering to end doesn't mean that you want them to go. Say that again. Wanting your loved one's suffering to end is not the same as saying, I want them to go. Relief doesn't mean that you love them any less. You are a human being, and this is probably one of the toughest things you've ever been through in your life. So I encourage you to give yourself grace. That's what I tell patients. Give yourself grace and allow yourself to feel all the things that you're feeling. And if relief is one of them, the desire for this to end is one of them, you are not a bad person. You're an exhausted person. So that's the first thing I want to say. The second thing is sometimes going back to that promise, that people have made. Like, I promised my mother, I promised my father, I promised my sister that I would never leave their side and they wouldn't die alone. Again, one of the things that I offer to patients is, what would your mom say about the fact that you haven't left this bedside? What would your spouse say that you haven't been home in 2 weeks? What would they say? Now, that's a risky question. I'm going to tell y'all that. That's a risky question because, again, I've said this before, as a chaplain, you're coming into somebody's life at a point in time, at a snapshot in their life. And they could have had a terrible relationship, and the person in that bed could be the most selfish person in the world, like me. I've told my husband, oh, you better not leave. You better stay there to the very last moment. But in all sincerity, because you don't know that person. But 9 times out of 10, what comes up when you ask that question is some version of, they'd want me to take care of myself. And so by getting them to put themselves in the frame of mind of their loved one and what their loved one would want for them, sometimes that relieves some of that pressure that they may be feeling. And then the second thing I offer is what I said earlier, is that I'm like, sometimes the person won't pass as long as you're here. They don't want that to be the last memory that you have of them, because that waiting can be traumatic within itself, right? And so you walk away, you go get something to drink, you go home, and the person passes away. Of all of that with that family, sit in the silence, sit in the pause with them. And when they say how they really feel, affirm those feelings and normalize them. I think those are the 2 big things I want to leave with you, is that when someone shares a feeling that is gives them shame or guilt, causing them great angst, the 2 biggest tools you have in your arsenal as a chaplain is affirmation, number 1, and normalization, number 2. Affirm that they are not a horrible person and normalize the fact that a lot of people feel the way you do. Okay? It's a gift to that patient. The last thing I'll add to is that if you get a patient who's really fused with the thought of a good daughter would do this, a good son would do this, a good spouse would do this, what have you. They're really fused with that thought that they should be behaving in a certain way, or they can't leave the bedside. They got to stay vigil, hold vigil, because that's what a good daughter would do. They're fused with that thought. And one of the ways that you can help them is to get a little bit of space around that. And what does that look like? When you're dealing with anticipatory grief, so that is, they are thinking about the future, right? What it's going to be like without their mother, what it's going to be like with their spouse. One of the best things you can do to diffuse that identity they have about a good daughter would do this or a good son would do this, and the tension around anticipating the future, is to do something that's called present moment awareness. Bring them back to the present, gently, with love, so not in a dismissive way, but in an invitation to say, we don't know how long this is going to be, but what we do have is this moment right now. And I would like to invite you to breathe. I would like to invite you to slow down and think about what matters most in this moment, because this is the only moment that we can guarantee is the one we're in now. What would you like your loved one to know? Or how would you like to feel? Whatever question that you would use and feels authentic in that moment. But invite them into that sacred pause. Invite them into that quietness. Invite them into some calm in that moment. All right, my loves. Until next time. Y'all know what? I think this might be my 100th video. And this is also, I just celebrated my 1-year anniversary as a chaplain. So give your girl some love by sharing, liking, and commenting so that we could get this out to more aspiring chaplains. And until next time, if you're new around here, my name is Leslie. I'm creating the videos I wish existed when I started this journey a while ago. Like, subscribe, comment, and until next time, grace and